For a woman who just had an unplanned pregnancy, it's going to be whatever you want it to be. It's going to be whatever you choose for it to be. And it's an opportunity to drop two habits. One, it's recognizing that a child screaming or yelling in a store is not because they're out to get you. They are processing their emotions in that moment the best way that they can. Teenagers, it starts with us. We really want to get honest about where we're at as far as cultivating a deeper relationship with ourselves, our own self love, and
For the parents out there who want a deeper relationship with their children, what would you say for them?
is that okay? If you're going to process your emotions, don't do it here because I care about what all these people think and you're embarrassing me. Therefore, we're programming that you processing your emotions is an embarrassment. More important than handling what's happening or manifesting through that child is handling and processing what that's bringing up within us. That's the gift. The triggers, and when they do stuff like that, that embarrass you, that trigger you, that's a gift.
We're gonna go from toddlers, okay, elementary school, middle school, high school, and then maybe after.
That I'm speaking about in parenthood is being you're being slapped in the face with that opportunity to level up and grow. So, yeah, we've been conditioned to believe that being a parent, being a single parent, is a hindrance to all of the rewards in life, But really, they can be a way for us to.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Transformation to Expansion. My name is LaJoie Bradley, and today we have a very, very, very special guest with us. Her name is Michelle Bowen. So please welcome her to the show. I'm going to give you guys a quick bio on Michelle. So Michelle Bowen helps individuals utilize parenthood as a powerful tool for healing, self-acceptance, and strengthening the parent-child bond. Her approach is simple and practical, ensuring that parents can achieve these goals without breaking the bank. Through her breakthrough sessions and two transformative programs, she has proven that experiencing more peace in parenthood is not only possible, but also enjoyable, expansive, and sustainable. Michelle encourages parents to break free from patterns of spanking, screaming, and overwhelm, ultimately helping them rise above and create an energetically nurturing, peaceful environment for themselves, their children, and their own inner child. Please welcome to the show, Michelle. Hey, Michelle, how are you doing today?
Hey, Lajwa, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, welcome to Transformation to Expansion. And on today's show, we are going to have a very, very, very special episode all about conscious parenting because this is one of those things that they don't teach us in school. They need to. I think they should teach us in school if they're really trying to prepare us for life, right? But they don't really teach us in school. So I wanted to give y'all an opportunity to kind of learn from an expert of, a way of parenting and a way of consciously parenting our children. Because I know, when I was reading the bio, what was the three words? Screaming, spanking, screaming, overwhelm. Yes. I was like, I've seen it, we've seen it in our own families. We've experienced it. And so I know that this is something that is going to really help, in my opinion, like everybody, really everybody, because I think everybody has experienced one of those three in their families. Okay. That's just how it is. And if you haven't, let us know so you can come onto the show and talk about it because we want to learn from you. But thank you so much, Michelle, for being on the show today. And of course, we always start with what is your transformation story into the work that you do now?
I come from a Jamaican family. Both sides of my family are Jamaican. I was a firstborn generation American, so the first in both sides of my family to be born in America. If you know anything about the Jamaican culture, spanking is common. Spanking, screaming, anything goes to get you to sit still and be quiet. And along with that, I was also heavily raised in a church. In the church, not from my mother, but from my grandparents. And so spanking for me was normal, getting spanked with belts, etc. It was just the norm. As I got older, I didn't know I'd be doing what I do now. But as I got older, I stopped going to church around 12, 13ish and just started seeking just it wasn't resonating with me much. It wasn't really giving me the answers. I had questions, but nobody was. I wasn't really getting the answers to the questions that I had, and I kept trying to go back to church here and there when I would get the impulse to do so, but nothing would ever stick. Um, and then fast forward, well, we won't skip a lot. So I had a pretty tumultuous, childhood, teenage years. I was pretty angry in my teenage and childhood years. I was raised by a single parent. Um, what else? I was suicidal. I had suicidal ideation from a very early age. Um, as a parent now, it blows my mind how early in age it was, but it was a pretty early age. I was bullied pretty heavily in my middle school years. Lost my grandma at around 13. And yeah, I started to act out after the age of 13. I was sent away to a place called Teen Challenge. When I was 15, I had to stay there for a year. Um, and then when I got out, I uh, met my first boyfriend who I was with for a good bit. But I didn't really heal from all the stuff that I had experienced. I didn't process it. I grew up in a family. I didn't really witness what it looked like to watch an adult process their emotions. Um, Healthily or constructively. I didn't really have that space where it was, encouraged for me to do the same. So age of 16, met my first boyfriend, started to have fun in life, or what I thought was fun, and just kept pushing through, but was still heavily depressed, and masking through alcohol and marijuana usage. So um, then let's fast forward to one day I was driving to work when I was around age of 21ish, 22ish. I was driving to work, um, and I heard something on the radio. I mean, just driving like normal. I heard something on the radio that said something about positive and negative thoughts, and the way it stuck out, the way it hit me, it just it's like that was something that just started everything. I got super curious, super interested. It doesn't seem like a big deal, right, to hear that, but that had been my first time in my entire life, I think, where I realized that there was positive and there was negative, and that I was neither of them. I was the one that was aware of them. And so that kind of catapulted me into what they call a spiritual awakening that only intensified as time progressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was years of me seeking heavily, and then a lot of inner work, deep work, what healing, looking at my own trauma, sitting with it, courses, all the things, right? And reading all the books and just really trying to learn myself and know myself at a very deep level is kind of what transpired as years progressed. And then I got pregnant, and I was like, yes. She's getting me while I'm fully healed. My ego was like,
Mm-hmm.
I am fully healed and I am I am ready for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then everything was gravy for the first couple years. Then she turned 2.5 years old, and the energy and the bond that we had was bringing up stuff within me from the depths. Like it was bringing up, because obviously it's like this. Here's this cute little chunky ball of cuteness. Obviously, she's not the reason that you have all of this stuff coming up. It can seem like it on the surface, but no, she was just born. She was just born a couple of years ago. So the energy in our relationship and our bond um, was bringing up a lot within me to really be looked at in a way that I think maybe I would have continued to run from had I not had a child. And so
Mm-hmm.
I started to do even deeper work. And then I was like, okay, game time. Like now I have to find a way to literally merge all that I've learned as far as conscious and peaceful parenting, conscious and peaceful living with parenting. Um, And I started to get this started to open me up creatively because I started to create game plans and methods specific for myself and my pain points and my blind spots that would help me to keep my heart open in moments where I had been conditioned from my own childhood to close it. And so that's where that started. And at that time, I wasn't thinking about being a parent empowerment coach or doing any of this work with parents. I was trying to survive. I was trying to experience peace myself to the best of my ability with my own child. And I believe there were coaches out there at the time, but not many people who were speaking about conscious parenting at the time was resonating with me as deeply as my own teachers, my spiritual teachers who actually did not have children. So I was it put me in a space where I had to get creative based on what I had learned on my own up until that point. And so yeah, through that, my daughter, it's just been a constant up leveling, constant commitment to experiencing peace and parenthood as best as I can, moment to moment, keeping my heart open, moment to moment, to the best of my ability. It's never ended. The transformation is still ongoing. It's just like anything else, when you commit to something and you start practicing it, you get very skilled at it. But it doesn't mean that moment to moment you're still not in a position to where you have to keep practicing. So that's where we're at.
That's amazing. And so how old is your daughter now?
She'll be 9 in July.
Aw. And how was that relationship? How has it? And yeah, because I know in twos and threes, that's when they test in the waters. That's I call it terrific twos and threes. I don't want to call it what everybody else calls it.
Before then, they couldn't really push your buttons the way that, they couldn't start pushing your buttons before that age. So, not really. Not as much as they can when they hit that age.
Hmm.
You had asked how is the relationship we have now?
Hmm.
Better than I could have ever imagined. Super, super grateful for it. Sometimes I've been creating content now for years, and it's actually not something I speak about a lot, my relationship with her. And I think part of that is because oftentimes when I look at my relationship with her, I'm blown away. I'm still kind of in awe and shocked at experiencing what I do experience with her, because it's completely different than what I experienced as a child. My mom did her best, by the way. I do have to say that she did the best she could from her level of awareness, and she did the best that she could with how she was raised and what she experienced, and she did the best she could. But even my mom would sit here and tell you that what I experience with my daughter is unlike anything um, that we experienced, not just my mom and I, but with my mom and her mom, and
Hmm.
so. Um, and I feel like what I mean by that is just the energy of it, the openness, the free space, the space to be ourselves, the space to speak our truth, to speak authentically about how we feel. Um, there's no screaming at each other. There's never been spanking. Her energy is more often than not just happy and joyful, and there's just a connection. There's just a connection, a deep connection, and um, And I think more than anything, it's a testimony of the healing that's possible through parenthood if we use it in a way that facilitates that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because that's one thing I've come to realize. I mean, like the audience knows I'm not a parent, but one thing that I guess I know to be true is, well, yeah, it's like I'm a plant parent, but that does not count. Anyway, one thing that I know to be true.
That counts to a degree. I told you before that everybody's a parent technically because the way that you treat other people's kids, it it plays a role in their upbringing. The way that you treat the child inside of you is definitely parenting. Like you're parenting every day when you love on you, and the way that you treat. And I am not the best plant parent. See, that's fake. Like I love plants. I love plants. So no, I love plants, but they haven't lasted long. But so taking care of a plant and what it takes to really take care of a plant, like it takes dedication, it takes commitment, it takes love. So um but yeah, there's a little girl inside of you that you've been raising. So for sure, everybody I feel is a parent in a way.
Get started on your wellness journey today. Whether you are starting your wellness journey in the middle of it or finishing it, this library will help you so much on how to jumpstart your wellness. And really, it has so much more than that. It has full guides on how to quantum leap, full guides on how to manifest, and even my personal favorite, coloring books. Yes, and I'm talking unique coloring books. Y'all already know who you're dealing with, okay? We have baobab coloring books, cactus plant coloring books, and so much more. And it's completely free. So please make sure to check it out, especially if you're on your wellness journey, or if you know a friend who is on the wellness journey and wants some free resources. Please let them know about the wellness library. Okay, the link is in the show notes below. I love y'all so much. Let's get back to the show. And we're gonna talk about the inner child. So we're gonna talk about that. But first, I just want to recognize that there's this narrative around parenthood, especially for women, especially for women of color. There's a narrative that when you have a kid, it's not a good thing. It's really projected onto us by TV, by
Ooh.
media, that it's supposed to be this bad thing. And me coming into this age, now I see that it's the exact opposite in my opinion. I really do believe having a child is truly a blessing, because like you said earlier, it's an opportunity for you to kind of, with a snap of your finger, start to heal from some of the trauma that I think people who don't have kids take decades, y'all, decades to get over. So can we just talk about that real quick, about the blessings of parenthood, and how that healing process
Mm.
is
Yeah.
part of those blessings.
Yeah. So I do feel like parenthood wakes everybody up to the degree that they're uh, asking, because it makes us focus on, it forces us to take care of something other than ourselves. And so even in that light, like, it's expansive just
Mhm.
by the nature of having something else to take care of. It's an expansive experience. Um, and you are correct. Being a mom, being a single mom, has been stigmatized for many, many, many generations. And partly because there's a control factor there, right? If I make you feel not so good about being a single mom, then you're going to feel like, oh, you have to be with a partner and you have to settle for a partner to prevent the stigmatization, right? No. But that is how we've been conditioned. And oh, and also you can't leave me, because if you leave me, you have a child. What's that going to look like? We don't care anymore.
Right,
Like, you
right.
know, but I say that we don't care anymore, but on a collective level, there's still a lot of caring about that, because
Mhm.
kind of the way that we're conditioned is that the more that we see examples that it's okay to not care about what other people think, the more that we see examples of women thriving and being okay and moving on and continuing to live amazing lives after being a single mom or becoming a parent, then the more people are not afraid of it, right? Um, but that stigma is pretty huge. We've also been programmed and conditioned to believe that when you become a parent, say goodbye to your dreams. Whether you're
Yeah.
married or not, say goodbye to living the life of your dreams. It's because although it's expansive in that you start to take care of another child, it's also expansive in that um, it's not that your child makes it to where you can't fulfill what you're here to do or find your calling and live your calling. They're just a part of it. They're just a part of it. They're not here to stop you from it. They're not a burden unless we believe they are and unless we're seeing it that way and choosing to continue to believe that they are. Um, they're just on the ride with us, helping us heal, helping us grow, and helping us fine tune in a way what really matters to us most. So, yeah, we've been conditioned to believe that being a parent, being a single parent, is a hindrance to all of the rewards in life, but really they can be a way for us to heal and then really have some fun. Because I mean, what fun would all of the things that you feel a person without kids is able to experience? What fun would that be for you if you weren't healed from the things that are still causing you to live limited in a limited way or be negative to yourself, etc., right? Um so yeah, being a single mom and or having children isn't preventing us from anything. It's actually helping us to experience freedom and get more creative and keep our heart open.
I want to dive into that a little bit deeper. What are some of the ways that children can bring more positivity, not more positivity, but more alignment into our life? What are some of the ways that can happen?
What are some of the ways that children can bring more alignment into our life?
Hmm.
Um, well, every moment that your child triggers you is an opportunity for you to pause and to focus on your alignment, and therefore reduce how often you are reacting and responding and creating your life and relationship with your child out of alignment. So it's not so much that our children bring more alignment into our life themselves by what they do or what they say, but they actually give us many opportunities for us to prioritize our own alignment, which helps us to then create our relationships in our lives from that alignment. Um, Oftentimes we are conditioned to believe that, parenthood is overwhelming or parenthood is why we are overwhelmed. But is that accurate, or is parenthood actually showing us that it's time to prioritize our peace? And that's not something that we maybe looked at or was attempting to do or prioritizing prior to parenthood. But when we look back on our lives and our choices prior to parenthood, we can see that there were other things in life that was showing us that prioritizing peace would probably be beneficial. So, this is how I feel that parenthood or our children are bringing us into alignment, is because, I mean, when you're taking care of a child, they're with you 24/7, or there's something they have to be on your heart and mind 24/7 because you're responsible for them. And so that's tons of opportunities for them to trigger you more so than even your partner or family, because most adults have been so heavily conditioned to tiptoe around your triggers or to alter how they are so that they don't offend or trigger you. Children aren't doing all that stuff. So
Hmm.
they are able to trigger you sometimes more than anybody else on the planet. And for anyone who wants to experience more peace in their lives and who wants to heal, that is the best gift you could have ever received. You want to be triggered deep down because you want to see those beliefs and those thoughts, those perceptions that are causing you to react the way that they are. You want to see those moments where your emotions hijack and take over, and where instead you can start to practice adding more presence and more peace. You want to see that if you have the intention to experience more peace and to experience creating your life consciously and peacefully. So our children give us so many opportunities to practice living in alignment and responding in alignment. And they also give us opportunities to practice stretching the muscle of self forgiveness and self compassion, because we're human. So it's not about getting it right 24/7, but it's about being yourself. And when you react unconsciously in ways that bring about mom guilt or that bring about shame, this is good because it gives you an opportunity to practice coming back into alignment after going into those energies of shame and guilt, which can be very hard. So the practice is very good to get. Um, so reacting isn't really a bad thing, reacting unconsciously, because that's an opportunity for us to practice being kind to ourselves. And in order for us to really be able to give our children those pep talks or those optimistic talks, or in order for us to really be compassionate to them or forgiving and merciful and genuinely gentle, we have to first be able to be that towards ourselves. So whether it's our children triggering us and us being able to use that trigger to practice keeping our heart open, or whether
Mhm.
it's our children triggering us and we forget our practices and we react unconsciously, that's still an opportunity for us to practice living from alignment by getting back into alignment. But so it's just the way I see it is that that's kind of what one of the main purposes of parenthood um, is to help us get more skilled at alignment.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, because I think the other thing is like children, they know how to live with their hearts. They it's not even that they know how to live with their hearts. that's the only that's the only thing they know is how is the first thing that they instinctively do is navigate life through their hearts until they're about 6 or 7 when they start to learn of other ways of doing this through the environment they're surrounded by. But just to what you were saying, like in terms of the people who are listening and are like, what do you mean living in alignment? Living in alignment is like following your heart. And if you don't know how to follow your heart, talk to your kids, ask your kids. They are experts at this because again, they don't know anything else. Until a certain age, okay, depending on the environment, all of that. Um, so it's really important to recognize that. Real quick, so for a woman who had an unplanned pregnancy, what are some words you would say to her, real quick?
For a woman who just had an unplanned pregnancy, um, this is a blessing. It's going to be whatever you want it to be. It's going to be whatever you choose for it to be. So I said it's a blessing. That's my projection. That's how I view it. But for you, it's going to be whatever you choose for it to be. And it's an opportunity to drop two habits: one, people pleasing, and another one, caring about what other people think. If the people around you want you to see it as a very stressful situation, and it's an opportunity for you to stand tall and speak on the situation the way you want to see it and the way that you want to create it to be for yourself, regardless of what other people around you are saying or thinking, because how you feel about it and how you choose to see it is what it's going to be for you. um, it's going to help you grow. It's going to help you learn more about yourself than you ever could have imagined. And it's not stopping you from doing what you're here to do in this lifetime. It's actually going to help you be able to do it better than you could have ever imagined. There are no mistakes. Um, there are no mistakes unless you believe there are. But
Right.
everything is happening for you, including this pregnancy.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm like tearing up low key. I am not pregnant. Let me just emphasize to the audience.
That's funny. That's funny you said that. I was like,
Yeah, yeah, no,
Well,
I'm not. I'm not. I'm
did,
like, I'm a
did she
very
just
like,
try to get a word for herself real quick?
no, 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 oh, no, 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 no.
No,
Trust me,
I'm just playing.
there's
I'm
no
just
way.
playing.
There's no way. Anyway, we were into it.
Mm,
No, I'm a very sensitive person, and whenever I feel a calling to ask a certain question, it's because I know that there's somebody out there who's going through that, and I don't normally, I don't normally ask questions like that,
mm.
but that was a
Oh,
question that I felt needed to be asked in the moment because I just know there's so many women, especially in America, who who need to hear those words. They need to hear those words because there's just so much, again, media that
Mhm.
just tries to convince us that this is a negative experience when
Mhm.
if you choose to let it be a negative experience, yes. If you allow the people who are telling you this, or you if you're allowing those words to get into, yes, it can be a negative experience, but it can also be a really positive and beautiful experience. So that's sorry, I had to get that out there.
No, and I love that. And I also think one of the ways that it's promoted as a negative experience is collectively we've been taught that comfort is king, that life is supposed to be all about
Mm.
being comfortable. And if you are under that assumption, then yes, having a child can be the worst thing in the planet because it's going to stretch you. It's going to cause you to grow in ways um, that are just, they just grow. It's going to cause you to grow in so many different areas, and growth can be very uncomfortable. And so I feel like that's one of the ways we've also been programmed to see parenthood as a nuisance, because it's not just that, okay, I'm pregnant, this is the uncomfortable part. No, the growth that I'm speaking about in parenthood is you're being slapped in the face with that opportunity to level up and grow moment to moment every day. um, it's like there is no destination when it comes down to the growth that we're speaking about. So you just have to learn over time. You fall in love with the journey because there is no destination for, okay, one day parenthood is going to feel just, I'm going to have it all figured out. Like no, none of us know what we're doing. We're just getting more skilled at being okay with not knowing what we're doing. We're just getting more skilled at being okay with navigating cluelessly the best that we can from love and from peace, right? So it's not that one day we're going to have it all figured out. It's just one day we're going to get comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing, get comfortable with the things that come up within us to be released and held space for. So, again, if I was speaking to somebody who was just about to have a unplanned pregnancy, another two things would be to get excited about your growth, because to find some ways to get really excited about your growth and to get excited about being pulled out of your comfort zone, and find some ways to really make sure you have a few things that ground you, that make you feel safe and that make you feel good, and keep doing those things, um, because this is going to stretch you. And then also
Mhm.
the other thing I would say for sure is that it's not selfish to prioritize your peace. We've been conditioned and programmed to believe that, okay, having a child now, screw your peace. You can't focus on being you relaxing, or you focusing on your peace. That's selfish. That's bad. You know, in order to be a good mom, you have to be busy, overwhelmed, burned out. That's a good parent. That's productive. No, that's outdated information, in my opinion. The more relaxed and at peace you are, the more peaceful your home environment is, the more safe of a space it's going to feel for you and your child. Therefore, the deeper connection will be able to be had between you and your child. So get comfortable with discomfort, get comfortable with growth, and also start to have fun making peace your number one priority by any means necessary. Um, these are things that I would have loved to have heard.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right. Yeah, because there's too many stories that I know of women who needed to be told that. So thank you so much, Michelle, for you know answering that question, talking to the audience, empowering our audience. Thank you. Does our relationship with our parents and our experience with our parents have an impact on how we treat our children?
Yeah, for sure. But in a very empowering way, if we choose for it to be. So a disempowering way that our relationship with our parents can affect our own parenting with our own children is if we are constantly blaming why we act the way we act with our child on our parents. An empowering way of an empowering way of allowing our relationship with our parents to impact our children is when we are willing to do what I like to call uh, the generational call out method. And that's where we give ourselves permission throughout the day to call out the patterns of our own behavior and hyperreactivity in loving ways, and calling out the patterns that have been passed down, from our parents to us and from those who came before them, to call them out, instead of blaming and shaming our parents for them being the reason why we yet react the way we do. We call out the pattern that we see emerging within us, and we're like, dang, this is the pattern. And then that is also a way that we can practice holding space for that energy instead of projecting it onto our children or perpetuating and looping those cycles. So oftentimes collectively what we see is we see a lot of, really blaming those who came before us for why we act the way that we act with our current children. Um, when really those who came before us were coming from a different time with different resources, different, so much different, in so many different ways. And one of the hardest things to hear oftentimes is that they were doing the best that they could. Why is that so hard to hear? Because a lot of us experienced some intense things in our childhood with our parents. So, um, but it just benefits us to remember that they were doing the best they could from what they experienced from their grandparents. And oftentimes those of us who experienced any type of trauma or abuse or spanking, screaming, etc. from our parents, oftentimes when you look back on what they experienced with your grandparents, you'll see that what you experienced was a less intense version of what they experienced. And I never say that to excuse what we experienced. I say it to see that to kind of drive home that we are the next iteration. So now we have the torch. And we don't really have time. Tomorrow isn't promised. Dinner time isn't even promised. So we don't really have time to really invest our energy in shame and blame. Instead, we want to just be more aware of where that path. We have the gift of a lifetime, our generation does, because now we have the ability to call out the pattern that's been looping through those who came before us. Now we have the opportunity and the ability to call out that pattern, to pause, to sit with it, to hold space with it, and to release it, and then to consciously choose the pattern we're going to create for the generations moving forward. And this is just not something that was commonly discussed, um, to the degree that it is now,
Mhm.
generations prior. So um, so yes, what we experienced with our parents definitely impacts our childhood. A lot of times, a lot of times, what you'll notice is that especially when your child is 2.5, three, teens, etc., you'll notice that a lot of the things that you flip out about, that your body starts to spaz out about, you who you really are, if you were like 8-year-old you looking at somebody trip out the way you are, you'd be like, whoa, calm down, lady. But a lot of the things that our body is flipping out about that our children is are doing, it's really a learned reaction based on how we saw adults act and react in those same situations. So we oftentimes are very literally feeling a lot of what our parents and those before us were feeling in those triggering situations. It was just that we're the ones, or those who have woken up to the desire right now to experience more peace by any means necessary and to create a relationship with their child that is peaceful and conscious by any means necessary. You're the one, though, in your lineage who has woken up to being that space holder, holding space for that energy, holding space for that, transmuting it, and then creating a new pattern. Um, and I'm not talking about parenting the way I think you should or the parenting any parenting the way anyone on the planet should. This is more about parenting your own, creating your own unique parenting style from your heart. But in order to create that, you have to first hold space for the old iterations. You have to transmute that energy first. So, so yeah, our relationship with our parents definitely plays a role in and where we're going to need to either heal, or there might be things from your childhood that you want to you definitely consciously want to add to your own parenting style. One or the other, though. But I don't feel that it's stopping us from living and experiencing the relationships with our children that we're here to have.
Yeah, and I want to point out something that you said like a couple minutes ago. Um, our parents did their best. I love that you pointed that out because we don't realize what they went through with their parents, right? 9 times out of 10, technically, it's an evolution. It's a step up from what they experienced. It is. 9 times out of 10. Obviously, sometimes yes, we can evolve downward. We can, but I think that's a very important
Ye-
point that people. I mean, I really didn't even recognize and really became aware of until you said it. To be honest, but that's true. This is true. They technically did better. So I mean, I think it's important to recognize that because sometimes, when we are in that negative state of mind, and we are in a space of putting blame on others and victimhood, we tend to forget that at the end of the day, they are our parents, or even, you can go beyond that, whoever hurt us. um they were just doing what they were taught, and maybe in their eyes it was a better version of what they were taught, what happened to them. So just it allows you to kind of it allows you to have more compassion for the people that that may not have had our best interests in mind. And so I really wanted to take a moment to recognize that, because this is the
Mm.
first time somebody had ever kind of pointed that out to me, and I'm like, wait, that's actually really big.
This farm isn't just any farm. It grows for Juice Plus. Juice Plus is farm to capsule nutrition made from 30 different non GMO fruits, vegetables, and berries. Harvested at peak goodness to make nutrient rich plant powders in convenient capsules. Clinically proven for over 20 years to support your wellness. And makes it easy to help bridge the gap between what you should eat and do eat. Fruits and vegetables are always on the table with Juice Plus. Juice Plus. Goodness is our natural state.
It can really there's like this energetic load that just you can sometimes even feel from drop from you when you give yourself a permission to kind of contemplate that. And like an onion, there are many layers to it, right? But it just it's like every single time I give myself permission to really feel into how um, people have been doing the best that they could, even when it looks like somebody's being totally malicious. The it's like you're either suffering or feeling peace, and if you're doing something malicious, that shows us that you're suffering. Again, I'm not excusing what you're doing. I'm still going to use my discernment to move away, but at least now I'm not carrying that shaming you, judging you, because all of that has energy, right? Me judging you, condemning you, shaming you, me still having a grudge against what parent XYZ did 15 years ago. That all carries an energy, a very real energy, right? And so, um, at least me being able to see in our
Mhm.
parents who came before us, or even the stranger on the street doing something malicious, when I'm able to see that you are doing the best that you can from where you're at, again, I'm not excusing it, but it helps me to not add that weight and that load to my own energy of shame, blame,
Mhm.
and this is something that also, so this also goes into parenthood, because we've been conditioned to shame our kids when they do XYZ, to blame them when they do XYZ, to hold grudges against them when they do XYZ, forgetting that they, number one, are children, number two, are doing the best that they can moment to moment. They are doing the best they can. And even if you think that they could be doing better, we don't know better than life. We don't know more than life itself. So how could we ever determine whether our child is not doing the best that they could? Oh, because I told them that they should have I told them 55 times
Mhm.
that they needed to clean their room and they still didn't do it. This is true, but we're in our 20s, 30s and 40s, and there's a lot of stuff that we didn't start to really pay attention to and follow the instruction of until we were in our 30s and 40s. We were told about not dating that person that had those red flags. We knew better, but we did it. I could go on and on and on about all the things that we've known better to do. But it doesn't mean that we failed. It just means that we've been growing and we've been learning, and we're always growing and learning. So it's not so much that our children are choosing to not do their best. It's just that they always are. And the more that we give ourselves permission to see that and to really play with that idea, if we don't genuinely believe it, it just helps us to not add to our energetic plate the shame, the heavy energy of shame and blame and all of those things, which the more that we sit in those lower energies, the more that we are likely to do low energy things like screaming, hitting, etc. So it just definitely, and then also when it comes down to our own inner child, who can hold a heck of a grudge, when it comes down to our own inner child, if we've been holding a grudge against mommy for so long, for all these years, it can be very, very freeing to realize, dang, she was doing the best that she could. And she was actually even trying real hard, considering she didn't do a lot that my grandma did with her. So it's like when you really, yeah, so it's, again, it's never to excuse behaviors, but it's learning to be able to let go so that you can free yourself, because you deserve to experience life from a lighter vibe, from you feeling more free and less burdened with the non-forgiveness and the grudges.
Yeah, and you touched on this, so let's get into it. Let's get into conscious parenting. Let's dive in. We're gonna go from toddlers, okay, elementary school, middle school, high school, and then maybe after if we can. But anyway, okay, so let's get into conscious parenting real quick. Toddlers. So when you are working with toddlers, they're testing out the waters. You go to Toys R Us, you won't buy their toy, they're gonna throw a tantrum in the middle of the store. Not all of them, but or not even throw a tantrum, but they might get upset and start crying. Um, how would you navigate those situations? What would you recommend parents do in those situations?
What I recommend parents doing, of all ages, who are raising all children, all ages, but then also primarily from what you had chosen of the gap of the age range of toddlers, we want to go ahead and establish a ecosystem, a peaceful and empowered parenting ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a system of methods that you use that work together in a way to establish or for a particular outcome, right? So we want to go ahead and create like an ecosystem, um, of sorts that you're using not just when you're triggered by your child. We don't want to wait until we're triggered by our child in Toys R Us before we actually start to try to implement some type of conscious or peaceful parenting tool. What we really want to recognize and ask ourselves is if we want to parent consciously, or if we want living consciously and experiencing being more aware, conscious, awake to be a lifestyle, right? And so that's where the ecosystems come in. So what I recommend is a simple two-step one where we, one, have a game plan that specifically is for helping us to reduce tension throughout the day, which makes us less likely to explode, right?
Mhm.
Because there's a buildup of tension and stress in the body. And just when you wake up in the morning, especially if you are not yet at a place where If you are at a place still where when you wake up, you're flooded with a whole bunch of thoughts and you're just, focused on all types of things for the day, a lot of stress can build up. And then what happens is go to head to work and there's traffic stress, you feel some stress and anger. And if you don't have a habit of reducing stress at all throughout your day in some way, that stuff builds up. And then you go to work and something happens at work, more stress, just having to work, more stress builds up in the body, and all types of things go down within that time frame. Then you get home, you still haven't given yourself time or space at all throughout the day to release tension. You're just like ready, it's going to take nothing to make you pop, right? So you get home and your child runs up to you and they just want to give you a hug and they step on your toe. It looks like the reason you flipped out is because they stepped on your toe. But really, that was just the thing that manifested to release that buildup within you, right? So, well, Michelle, are you trying to say that if if I would have been releasing tension throughout the day and my child stepped on my toe, I wouldn't have flipped out? No, I can't tell you that you wouldn't have, but I can tell you that you more than likely would have been able to handle it from a more peaceful state of being because you wouldn't have had all of that tension still in your body as much as you do when you're not releasing tension throughout the day. So I'm still with you as far as the example in the Toys R Us, right? So I recommend a two-step ecosystem where we have one game plan where we're reducing tension throughout the day. And that
And
can
this is
look
for
like
parents,
setting a
right?
Yes, I do not work with children. I work directly with parents. So
Okay.
this is for the parent. So the parent would be releasing tension throughout the day, and that can look like setting a timer on your phone every hour or every 2 hours to take 5 deep breaths. You got to meet yourself where you're at. So if you're not an avid meditator, or if you haven't been practicing conscious breathing or meditating for a long period of time, start small and setting a timer on your phone every couple hours, every hour, to take 5 deep breaths, and then stepping it up. When that feels easy and you enjoy it, take 10 deep breaths. If you're an avid meditator, maybe for you it would be every couple hours or every hour meditating for 30 seconds or maybe a minute. I microdose because we're parents and you have things to do. So if we really, we don't always feel like we have time to sit down for 2 hours and meditate, right? Plus, oftentimes that kind of is very limiting in that, yeah, you meditated for 2 hours that morning, but then when you look at your reactions and behaviors all day throughout the day, it's like it's not that the meditation didn't help. It's just that it's less about meditating for a long period of time and more about getting ourselves in a position where we can experience the positive effects of meditation throughout the day and throughout the interactions we have in the day, right? So so again, one of the methods would be to reduce tension throughout the day by every couple hours meditating for a short period of time, or taking some deep breaths to release that tension throughout your body. Therefore, when you get to Toys R Us and they're flipping out or having a meltdown, you're more able to operate from a higher level of emotional intelligence, from your peace and from the clarity that comes from your peace. You're more likely to be able to tap into that within yourself than had you not been releasing tension, right? But then also coupled with that, as part of the two-step ecosystem, coupled with that would be a game plan, or a game plan that you have for yourself, specific to the meltdowns and tantrums, right? Which is going to look different for everybody depending on how their children respond to things, right? So if you're a parent that, although oftentimes if you've been attempting to reduce tension throughout the day and you've been really sticking with that game plan, the second part of your the second game plan for your two-step ecosystem could easily be to, after you have taken a deep breath and realize that you're triggered by your child's behavior in Toys R Us, after you've taken a deep breath or whatever it is that you do to stabilize yourself, or to come back to your center, then you can just you notice that you're intuitively led from that piece to do what's best for that moment, right? But if you're a parent who's been spanking and really wants to stop that habit, or who's been chronically screaming and really, really, really wants to stop that habit, is your child a hugger? Because if they're a hugger and they really love hugs, then what you could do is you could make it a method and a system to not only be practicing releasing your tension throughout the day, but when my child has a tantrum in the store, I am going to go hug them because they eat it up and they love hugs and they melt. And that is not always that can feel very uncomfortable to our ego because we've been so programmed and conditioned in those moments to be like, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not giving them that. No. So it can be very healing if you were raised in a family where they would have looked at you like you were crazy in those moments and refused to connect with you. You connecting with them and you creating a method that intentionally applies a hug in that moment can be one of the most healing things, not only for your child and your bond, but for you and the child within you. So there are so many different ways to play with how to handle and navigate that, um, because every moment's going to be different, and every child is going to be different. Because then you have some children who it's like they don't really care for hugs, but they do really respond well to X, Y, Z. Okay, then we make a plan, we make a game plan around X, Y, Z, and couple that with your commitment to reducing tension throughout the day, and you have yourself an ecosystem. Now follow it, and then you can tweak it as need be, because of the more that you consistently work with that, the less that's ever going to be an issue again. And then you're going to find that there's this other thing that happens that's a pain point, and then you get to create a game plan and a method with that. So yeah, for sure, if you notice that your child flipping out in Toys R Us is a thing right now, number one, remember that it's not always going to be a thing. Number two,
Mm,
focus more on focus. It's less about focusing on the child and how to fix it or stop it, and more focusing on your own inner response to it, and working with that so that you can then have the peace and clarity to respond to the situation with, um, for sure.
okay, so I just want to kind of reiterate what you had just said. So, if your child makes a scene in public, basically, um, you want to tap into what they like, and then kind of use that to get them to calm down.
Well, primarily it's focusing about, you want to be more concerned with your own energy than what's happening, because ultimately when a child is having a tantrum or a meltdown, it's less that they're making a scene and more that they are expressing themselves the best that they can from their level of
Mm-hmm.
awareness. They're
Mm-hmm.
processing those emotions the best that they can, and we've been conditioned and programmed to believe that processing your emotions, well, we've been conditioned and programmed to believe that, keep that stuff inside. Like, we don't
Mm,
have time for that. I don't want to hear that. That's a nuisance. Processing your emotions is a nuisance. That's kind of what we've been programmed and conditioned to punish people for processing their emotions. So, we've also been programmed and conditioned to believe that, okay, if you're going to process your emotions, don't do it here because I care about what all these people think and you're embarrassing me. Therefore, we're programming that you processing your emotions is an embarrassment. Okay, so it's recognizing that a child screaming or yelling in a store is not because they're out to get you. They are processing their emotions in that moment the best way that they can. More important than handling what's happening or manifesting through that child is handling and processing what that's bringing up within us. That's the gift. The triggers, and when they do stuff like that that embarrass you, that trigger you, that's a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift. And so the way that we capitalize on it and get the most out of that gift is we focus on, how can I make sure that I bring myself back to my own peace right now in this
mm,
grocery store, so that because when you're at peace on the inside, you don't care about what Emma Joe over here or Tom over here is thinking about you. You're at peace. So when you find a way to get yourself at peace on the inside, you're able to be tunnel vision on that peace and what needs to happen in that moment with your child, right? And so then you're able to handle it the best that you can. From any other state of being than peace, than joy, than love, you're just going to be projecting your emotion onto your child in that moment. Your anger, your rage, your frustration, your discomfort, your unrest, your embarrassment, right? Um, and then that's what becomes the pattern. So when they are processing their emotion the best they can from their level of awareness in a grocery store or in the Toys R Us, whether we
Mm-hmm.
call that a tantrum or a meltdown, we want to focus on our own response, our own inner response to that. We want to prioritize calming ourselves down in that moment before we even navigate it. This gets easier and
Mm-hmm.
easier. It gets easier and easier with practice, though. It doesn't just this for it for me at least. It didn't happen overnight. It gets easier and easier with practice, and so that's why I feel like I know it would sound like handling the thing in the grocery store seems like the best tip for that would be something immediate for the grocery store, but really handling what happened in the grocery store is able to be done from a higher level of emotional intelligence when we started to prioritize our peace throughout the day before we even got to the grocery store. And then, but let's just say we're in the heat of the moment and there's a tantrum happening. You still want to take a moment to give yourself, love yourself enough to give yourself a moment to take at least one deep breath. Okay. If you can't wrap your head around your game plan or your ecosystem that you've created for yourself, that's okay. We're human, but at least start to practice giving yourself enough of your love and attention, um, to and recognizing that you're worthy of pausing and giving yourself at least one deep breath first before responding. Well, Michelle, does that mean that because I gave myself that one deep breath that I'm gonna then respond from my highest level of emotional intelligence? No. You might, you never know, but no, it's not so much about that as it is stretching your capacity to hold space for yourself so that you can process how you feel when you're triggered instead of projecting that onto an already suffering child. Because a
Mm-hmm.
child who's having a tantrum or a meltdown in a grocery store, even if it's for a food or if they're in Toys R Us and it's about a toy, regardless of why they're flipping out, they're suffering. So and when I say we, that is any parent that is interested in conscious parenting, gentle parenting, peaceful parenting, we don't want to add on to that suffering. We want to harmonize. We want to give balance and peace to it so that we can transmute and harmonize because it's not our child's job or responsibility to transmute the energy in the field or to be that space of peace. They just got here. They're still new. We're the ones who woke up with a desire to experience more peace. So, in order for us to do our part to harmonize with them and to show them what's possible as far as emotional intelligence is concerned, we have to first be at peace. So, that's why it's not about getting it being perfect or getting it right. It's just about, oh my gosh, there's a tantrum happening in the Toys R Us store right now. What do I do? I can't even think right now. Okay, I can only do one deep breath. That's all I'm going to give myself. That is a lot. That is love. That is self-love. That is a tremendous act of self-love. And when you make that a habit and you make that a practice, a year later, 6 months later, 3 months later, 3 weeks later, once you have made that a practice, you realize, wow, there's a tantrum. It's 3 weeks after I first started doing this practice of of taking a deep breath before I react to a tantrum in the store. Here we are now. It's 3 weeks later. They're having another tantrum, same store, but I feel like I'm capable of actually giving myself 5 deep breaths before I respond. I actually feel like I'm capable of actually this is not even a big deal, right? And then as your energy is more light, your child feels that and they respond to that. And then what used to take forever to handle and manage now takes nothing. Takes you walking over to them, reassuring them not only with your words but with your energy that everything is okay. So,
Okay. Oh no, I love that. Thank you for that was a really great explanation. And I want to emphasize to the audience, and I'll put this in the form of a question. Is it ever okay to ignore your child when that happens?
that's a very good question. So, when it comes down to should you not, and is it okay to, is it not okay to, it's like I can't tell you that, and nor would I ever, um, because what happens is what's meant to happen. I feel, and we work with that data, and you decide what you want to do, get more skilled at, and you're deciding how you want to handle it moving forward, and then that's how you get to continue to co-create your own parenting style and relationship with your child. So if it happens and you ignore them, it happened. Don't beat yourself up about it, because that just keeps you in a low energy. That just keeps you in a low energy, which makes it more likely for you to do the very thing that you didn't want to do, right? So it's not so much that it's not okay to ignore your child. It's asking yourself, do you want to ignore them right now? Feeling into what you feel is best in that moment, right? If my daughter runs into the kitchen right now and shatters the glass, or if my daughter starts screaming right now, I have to feel into what I feel is, first of all, I already know that me immediately responding is not the best case scenario for me, because I need some time to process how I'm feeling, or I'm just going to project all of what I'm feeling onto the situation and make it worse, right? So it's more so about giving yourself that space to pause, breathe for a moment, and ask yourself w- a few questions, that you could ask yourself. Do I feel like this warrants a response from me immediately? Do I know that actually it's safe and okay for me to wait to respond to this until I feel peace? Do I know that this doesn't need to be responded to immediately? Do I feel as though it would benefit me and my child's safety and relationship to respond to this immediately? Am I aware that even in immediately responding, still pausing right before to bring myself back to my peace would still benefit the response, right? Um, we want to look at really where we're coming from when we're doing the ignoring, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
am I coming from a place of an energy less than neutrality? Am I coming from a am I and be honest, right? Am I coming from a place um of less than neutrality, meaning am I coming from anger, rage, uh, blame, shame? Is that where I'm coming from with me ignoring them right now? And if it is, that's okay. We're human. Let me hold space for it. Now's not the time for me to react, so I probably should be pausing. Let me hold space for that energy. And then I'll go talk to my child when I'm either at the neutrality or above, right? Am I coming from a space of ignoring my child right now from a higher level than neutrality, where I realize that right now what is best is me just being myself and holding space and sending love their way? Because that's not really ignoring. That's communicating in silence. That's giving love. That's sending love. That's real that's deep communication. That's connecting intentionally, right? So but it can look like ignoring, right? It can look like ignoring to someone who's not aware of the power of energy and intention, right? And how deeply we are all connected, and how even if you and I are in the same space, and I'm crying and you're being silent, you're not ignoring me. Because of your awareness of energy, you're probably just sending love my way and holding space, right? But it might look to somebody else like, oh, LaJoie is ignoring Michelle's tears, but you're not, right? So so I guess to answer your question more concisely would be, if you've ignored them, it's okay because it happened. Focus on how you want to handle it moving forward. And then also recognizing that when you are ignoring your child, if you have the intention to have a deep connection with them, um, 20, 30 years from now, and even now, and if you have an intention to really have an authentic and peaceful and conscious relationship with them, then get honest about where your ignoring is coming from. And if it's coming from a low level of energy, use that as an opportunity to hold space for yourself. And if it's coming from a space of you're not ignoring them really, you're holding space for what's happening and sending them love in silence, then I wouldn't call that ignoring. That's love.
Improvement, like there's just always try to improve. Don't dwell on the past experience that might have happened or might not have happened. just keep on being like, kind of accept that it happened and be like, okay, how do I want it to look next time? What do I want to intend for maybe possibly if this happens again, right? Hopefully it doesn't, but with kids, you never know.
Yeah, so it's just you're constantly leveling up, and in that way, it's you're constantly leveling up and you're constantly keeping up with yourself and your own expansion in that way. Instead of this limited state of mind where it's like, okay, it happened, we got through it, it'll never happen again. Like, no, it happened, we got through it, and now it made me stronger and more skilled at being able to handle when it or something wilder than that happens in the future, right? So oftentimes we've been conditioned to believe that if we get it right until by the time they're 9, 10, 11, or 12, then we won't have to deal with crazy things when they're 14, 15, 16, or 24. No, we don't know what's going to unfold. If we prioritize our peace right now, and if we prioritize peaceful connection with ourself and our home environment and our child now, then we're going to be more likely to handle anything that life and parenthood throws our way in the future, because life is going to keep life in. And so it's not so much about preventing our children from doing XYZ, it's making it to where we can handle and show up for whatever happens with our children in the future, or whatever life throws at us in the future, without it or life circumstances and parenthood being the dictator of how we feel. We are able to then show up in peace and clarity to whatever happens and whatever manifests.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, I love your perspective on parenting. I love that. Um, it yeah, it aligns with my perspective on how do I want to put this? Well, yeah, on motherhood, I always tell my clients for mothers, like, you need to be the priority. Like, I think we're conditioned, we're trained to think that our kids need to be the priority. It's like, no, 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 it starts with you need to be the priority. That's what's going to change everything else in the house ecosystem. I don't know if I've never talked to a male psychologist about this, so maybe it's a little biased, but a lot of my other friends who are psychologists, they always tell me, yeah, the mother is kind of like, it's the heart of the home, right? So if the mother is in balance, 9 times out of 10, the whole house is going to be in balance. But once you start to empower the mother to really tap into her and really pour into her and prioritize herself, then everything else will come to balance again. But again, I haven't talked to a male psychologist about this. Maybe I should get one on to see if he agrees. But I feel like he would. But yeah, so it's really important. So I love this perspective on conscious parenting. It starts with the parent. It doesn't start with the kid, it starts with the parent. I know today's guest has you filled with questions, but don't worry. You're going to have a chance to sit in this seat on August 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have our first live Q&A where you get to ask the questions to a previous guest. Make sure to click on the notification bell, subscribe to the YouTube channel so y'all can be the first to know, because it's going to be first come, first serve. Okay? I'll see y'all there. Peace.
It's not our responsibility. It wasn't our responsibility to regulate our parents' emotions, and it's not our children's responsibility to regulate ours, right?
Yeah, and that's where a lot of parents are coming from, right? They're coming from this space of you need to be a good kid. You have to
You're
do
supposed to
it.
make me happy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just not, and when you think about it too, when you think about your relationship with other people, you would never, never put that on anybody else. And you wouldn't expect anybody to be happy for you, or I guess do things a certain way to make you happy. We have this kind of intuitive knowledge that the happiness has to come from within. It has to come from ourselves, right? And so it's funny because whenever we get into the family dynamic, I guess it's what we're taught. Again, it's what we're programmed to believe, is that it has to be a certain way. Or yeah, we watch like the Happy Family on TV and we're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. And it's like, no. And actually, we had another a psychologist on the show a couple weeks ago, and she told me, she was like, there's no such thing as a perfect family. Every family she's ever worked with, they something is up, something, because that's part of it. Part of living in a family is to live with people who you don't normally get along with, and figure out how to have compassion for them.
I love that. And, something that I do say often is that you are already the perfect parent for your child just the way that you are. And what I mean by that is that, like, you are you are perfect in your evolution. So it's not you are perfect in that you are the end all be all, you don't need to shift, change, or transform. That's always already what's happening anyways. Like, change is constant. Relatively, our physical bodies and just life in general, change is always already happening. But you and what you are at your core, and just even relatively, you are perfect just the way that you are in your evolution, in your expansion. And so, in general, and as a parent, um, you might have things that you want to get more skilled at in parenthood. You might have goals and in general and in parenthood and things you want to get more skilled at, but that's not going to ever what you do and what you do and what you get more skilled at and what accolades you get and the good jobs and all of that is never going to really be what defines you. So it's like nothing in this world can really define the love and light that you are. So that's when I say that you are the perfect parent for your child just the way that you are. It's not to negate that there aren't aspects of your parenthood that you may want to get more skilled at, but it's just realizing that as you get more skilled at those things and whatnot, that it's not that you're going to be a great parent when, or that you're going to be better when, or that you're going to be perfect when. It's that you're amazing just the way that you are as you continue to evolve and as you continue to co-create the relationship you want to have with yourself and your child. So yeah, we all have things we want to get more skilled at. Everyone does, but it's never going to change the fact that in this present moment, you are loved just the way that you are.
I love that. Yeah. So, oh, I don't know. I'm just gonna ask the question again. Should we treat our children like adults?
It's not that it's I don't feel that we should treat our children like
Mm.
adults. I feel like we should treat our children, if there is a should, I feel like we should treat our children the way that we want to be treated. And it's like, well, Michelle, you're an adult, so are you saying that we should treat our children like adults? No, I'm saying that we should treat them the way that we want to be treated. We should treat them the way that we wanted to be treated at their age. We should treat them, we should speak to them the way that, like, if my daughter, I can't really treat my daughter fully like she's an adult, because I mean, she's not. She still needs my guidance and my care and whatnot, right? But I can talk to her with the same tone that I would like to her talk to me with, right? I can say thank you when she does something. I can say excuse me if I'm passing her. I can refrain from putting my hands on her because I don't want her putting her hands on me. I don't want her hitting me, so I can make sure I don't hit her. I also don't want her hitting other people. So that's another reason why I don't want to hit her, because that just teaches her to do that. I can refrain from screaming at her because I don't want her screaming at me. And how am I going to have it to where you can't scream at me in my house, but I scream at her? So it's like, what's going on? So I can make sure that I respect her boundaries. I can't, just because I want her to respect mine. I can recognize that anything I ask of her, I should be embodying, or at least working on embodying, because why am I asking it of her? So it's not that I feel as though children should be treated like adults. I feel like they deserve to be treated with respect and to be treated with compassion and love. And those are also what I feel like strangers on the street and other adults deserve as well. So yeah, we definitely have to use discernment and our inner wisdom and our inner guidance when parenting our children, because they are children. Um, but in the grand scheme of things, when it comes down to peace, compassion, love, and respect, adults deserve that, and our children do deserve it as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I had to ask the question because this is something that I've heard online. No, but seriously, it's something that I've heard. They're like, no, you need to treat your child like an adult, and because that's what they want. And I like how you put it. You want to treat the child how you want to be treated. And I like that perspective of thinking back to when you were their age. How did you want to be treated when you were their age? I think it's a great way to see it, especially when dealing with teenagers. So let's get into teenagers now. I mean, we got to toddlers. I think the stuff that you talked about with toddlers, we can also apply with kids who are little. But as a former educator, I've noticed that the methods that I use to manage my students who were in elementary school versus high school is very different. Two different ways of managing. The little stickers that's not gonna work for the high schoolers. They need like a different incentive. So when it comes to high schoolers, middle school, say middle school and high school, what are some of the I guess the ways to make parenting of that age group easier?
Prioritizing your peace. I know it sounds similar to what the toddlers was, but there's
Mm-hmm.
no. I think one of the ways we've been conditioned as well heavily is to believe that we've been programmed with, okay, they're a teen, so prioritizing your peace or being peaceful is not going to work. You've been programmed to believe that. Look at all the movies, all the shows, all of the everything has programmed you to believe that when puberty hits, force and fear are the way to go. If you want your child to listen to you after puberty hits or after they become a teenager, force and fear is what you have to do and use in order to be a good parent. Otherwise, you're failing them because you're not doing what needs to be done, etc. This is how we've been programmed collectively. And so it's recognizing that if we want to have a deep connection with our children, one where they feel like they can be themselves authentically with us, where they feel like it's a safe space for them to express the things happening at school, happening with them. If we want to have a deep connection with them that that's sustainable long term as they're in their teens, then we have to make our inner peace a priority. We have to be aware of the way that we're talking to ourselves moment to moment. We have to be aware of our energy. We have to make holding space for ourselves a habit. We have that's where we have to begin. It whether they are 13, 24, 34, wherever we are in our journey, attempting to have a more peaceful and harmonious relationship with another person, whether it's a parent, whether it's a partner, a parent, or a child. I don't see how it's going to occur if we haven't first started to make our inner peace a priority. And making our inner peace a priority so that we actually have peace to give, making our inner peace a priority so that we can actually respond to our children from a higher level of emotional intelligence and from the intuitive intelligence within us. I feel like that's where we're going to have to start. And also with teens, we want to make sure we've established a practice of being aware of our thoughts and our self-talk, our inner speech, because a lot of times our teens are mirroring the way that we talk to ourselves, right? A lot of times, the you know,
Mhm.
and so we really want to be very mindful of the way that we speak to and treat ourselves on the inside, because that's the energy, those are the words that we are going to um, find ourselves projecting onto our children. And then we've been conditioned to blame it on the teen. Well, I wouldn't have said that if they wouldn't have done XYZ. They've become a teen and it's gotten so crazy. I respect that. But at the same time, also, you wouldn't have said that if that wasn't already within you, regardless of what triggered it to come out. So we want to make sure that we are really looking at what's happening within us and really holding space as much as we can for those negative thoughts or those lower energies, so that we have less of that stuff to come up in conversation with our children. Um, because I'm a firm believer that our children will never be to blame for how we respond or react. Teen, wild craziness and all, I'm a firm believer that our children are not to blame for why we respond or react the way that they do. They came here after us, we birthed them. We are here to embody what's possible as far as emotional intelligence and embodiment of the love that we are is concerned. And so, again, teenagers, it starts with us. We really want to get honest about where we're at as far as cultivating a deeper relationship with ourselves, our own self love, and also being more aware of our thoughts and emotions and remaining, recognizing ourselves as the awareness of them instead of letting them take over.
I love that. Okay, thank you. And for the parents out there who want a deeper relationship with their children, what would you say for them?
Um, you want a deeper relationship with your child. You could start small and just start focusing on the aspects of the relationship with them that you love right now and start to amplify and start to really and start there. So I want a deeper connection with my child. It seems like the only time that we have fun is when we do XYZ. Do that a little bit more, you know. Um, I want a deeper relationship with my child, but they always do this thing that really does, makes me mad, right? Start to focus a little bit on why that makes you mad and how you can process that and how you can authentically speak to them about that. Maybe that's an opportunity to uphold some boundaries or just have a communication with them about it. Let them know some things about you that helps them to understand you better as far as that goes. So start with where you're at. Focus on the amazing things that are already happening in your relationship with them, even if it's just one thing, and amplify it.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I had to ask that question because I think there's a lot of parents who, I guess, who say they want a deeper relationship with their child, but they don't know where to start oftentimes. And so they'll start with something that maybe they like. But I always ask my friends, I was like, okay, you like that, but does your child like that? Like, do you know if your child wants to do that? Like, have you asked your child what they want to do? And usually they'll say no. And I'm like, well, I mean, like, where are we going from there?
Uh, I think all of us really deep down want to have a deep connection with our children. But I think that the reason parenting can be so healing is because ultimately we realize that in order to have a deep connection with them, we have to have a deep connection with ourselves. So oftentimes the yearning for a deep connection with another person, whether it's a partner, family or a child, oftentimes that's really a yearning within ourselves to connect more deeply with us. And another thing that you can do is start to really look at, are you doing things you love? Are you adding things to your day that you really enjoy? I know it seems like, whoa, I'm asking how I can deepen my connection with my child, and you're telling me to look at things that I could do to add more joy and peace to my own life. Yeah, um, because the more at peace you are within yourself, the more joy you're feeling within yourself, the more intuitively and naturally you're going to be led to how to add those things to your connection with your child.
For people who don't have children, do they still need to know how to consciously parent?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to know any of this stuff unless you have the desire. Like if there's a desire within you to experience more peace and then you could benefit from the game plans that you're going to be receiving from the joie. Because we all have a child within us, right? We all have, like when you step on my shoe and I flip out, you could easily acknowledge that that's the child version of you versus the version of you that has learned over these years to operate differently versus the version of you that would actually like to be able to respond from a higher level of emotional intelligence in moments like that, right? So you could easily equate a lot of our reactions to the child within us that reacted that way, and learn to perpetuate those cycles by watching adults continue to act like the child version of them, right? So you don't have to have a child at all to utilize any of this stuff or to utilize any of the wisdom that's out there regarding conscious parenting, reparenting, gentle parenting. because you do have you do have a child within you that is aligning with the version of you that you are evolving into and that you're becoming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're parenting your inner child. So any of y'all who are listening who don't physically have kids but are still working on that inner child work, you're going to be using the same methods to parent that inner child, okay? And again, it's going to prep you to really live in alignment, bring more things that you desire into your life, and to keep them, okay? Because sometimes we do attract what we want in our life, and then we lose them. It's oftentimes because we haven't prepared our body to keep what we desire, right? So parenting the inner child is really going to help you with that, and then recognizing when the inner child is coming out, like you just said, Michelle, right? If I stepped on your shoe and she's busting out like angry at me, she has to recognize that, oh, this is not Michelle adult. This is the inner child Michelle that is coming out. So now Michelle needs to figure out, what does inner child Michelle need that I haven't been given her? And so that's a whole process within itself. But when you guys check out her freebies, Your Child is Your Guide, that's definitely going to help you with that process. Okay. So I wanted to make sure y'all had access to that. Okay. So last question I asked all of my guests. You've done the transformation. Now we're expanding. So how do you see yourself expanding from here?
By remembering that I haven't, by remembering that um, that nothing is finished, nothing is done, and that uh, beginner's mind is how I staying fresh in beginner's mind, in the sense like not assuming that I've accomplished anything, not assuming that I've mastered anything, not assuming that my practice and all that I share with my clients and in social media is done, by continuing to set the intention to prioritize my peace above all else, and by continuing to stick to that moment to moment as best as I can. Um, by basically continuing this journey as if it's day one still of when I started to attempt to merge peaceful and conscious living with parenthood, by remembering that I'm not above um, being triggered or hardship or catalysts, staying on my toes.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so as usual, I always have my guests bring on a freebie for y'all, for the audience. And Michelle was super generous. And she actually has two freebies for y'all. So parents listening, please take note. The link will be in the show notes. You are going to have access to her first book, Your Child is Your Guide, for free. And in addition to that, 6 empowered parenting methods or game plans that you guys can implement as soon as you get sorry, no. Oh, as soon as you get to start experiencing more peace in parenthood. Okay, so once you start working on that inner peace, she has game plans of how you can better interact with your kids. Okay, so those are both for free. The link is in the show notes below, and Michelle said it's unlimited. So look, if y'all listening to this 2, 3, 4 years, maybe more in the future, please make sure to check the show notes, and you will be able to download that book and the resources there. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being on the show. Any last words to our audience?
No, you're an amazing parent to your child, just the way that you are.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for coming onto the show. As always, y'all, I love y'all so much. All of her contact information is in the show notes below, and I will see y'all next week. Peace.